Suddenly, the hero remembered the words of Master Alvanzuma, asked Julius to listen carefully, and asked, "What is the most powerful in the world, strong magic or an invincible army?" But he said that the correct answer is girls, because no one can resist them. At first, the hero attributed this to drunken delirium, but now he began to have doubts. The elf allowed him to lean on her. The boy thought that they were truly invincible. It really gave him pleasure. The second girl smiled and said she would take him to heaven. It was a pleasure it was impossible to resist them. The girls talked. One told the other to tie him up as quickly and as tightly as possible. The tall girls said they were leaving here. The second pulled the cart, and behind it rolled a wave of heroes. He did not even understand if he was really being kidnapped. The hero was convinced that the stupid prince was to blame for everything. Time goes back 3 years. The kingdom of Zivik is at war with neighboring states, and it is precisely thanks to the successes of their superpowerful first army under the command of the crown prince that the war is already on the verge of victory. Victory was already within reach. Someone in the palanquin shouted, asking about the pursuit. At the table sat the commander of the second army of the kingdom of Zirik, the third prince Ariolf Zirik. He was annoyed that the court magician expressed his opinion in front of the prince, but Julius did not calm down and insisted that the pursuit was clearly a trap. The sorcerer said that moreover all this was happening in the night forest under the rain. The conditions were too bad, and if they continued to pursue them further, they could suffer. The prince sharply ordered him to be silent. Prince, irritated, cut in that wizards should be scouts, not tacticians. Julius shouted that the prince had gone mad and was trying to ruin a battle that could still be won. Our hero is the court wizard Julius Castle. The prince shouted that the mage must not doubt him as the future king. The mage still insisted. This was his opinion, and he was convinced it was a trap. The prince exclaimed that in fact this was their chance. The prince replied that he did not want to listen to him because he considered the mage a war-weary fool who undermined their fighting spirit. The warriors around him began to call the hero a miserable simpleton, and if it were not for the royal court, they would have cut off his head for criticizing the royal family. Julius recalled how he went on reconnaissance, was a messenger, and sabotaged everything almost always alone. He asked the warriors if their reputation was really important to them, and they got angry. Julius said that now it was more important for them to preserve the lives of soldiers than to fight for the throne, although the heir had a better chance, and these words angered the third prince. The hero sighed and said that in his place he would not rush. Ariolf, enraged, swung his sword and struck the chessboard with it. He pointed the sword at the hero, said he was tired of tolerating him, and ordered him to return home immediately. The hero considered him a complete degenerate because he knew the truth was on his side. The prince shouted for the mage to disappear from his sight and to call Julius a dirty scavenger. The hero considered the prince brainless and thought that because of him they would lose. He asked if he had gone mad, and the prince ordered him to shut up. The hero did not understand if the prince realized where all this was leading. Julius sighed and told the prince not to forget that the enemy was after them, although he no longer cared, and the prince laughed and waved him off. Retreat, and when you return home you will be tried for desertion. The hero left and they laughed at him and said that at best he would not find a job at all. Smiling, he replied that he would still see how they would be acquitted at the tribunal and wished them luck in battle. From the stretchers they shouted at him with rage, and the hero, sticking out his tongue, simply walked away. Since ancient times, wizards in the kingdom of Zweik were despised. Strong men with swords are true heroes, and wizards were considered mysterious and incomprehensible people. The hero's teacher said, "Fools can wield a sword, but fools will not understand magic," and the hero, as always, believed him. A warrior passed by and asked Julius if he was going on reconnaissance, and he replied that he was going home, surprising everyone. The hero then used dimensional magic. Judging by the weather, the hero thought the soldiers would not last. Until dawn they were cold, and he could not understand how the elite could leave things to chance. The hero remembered the prince's insult, grinding his teeth in rage, and drove him away. Yet the kingdom of Zivik still won the war. But the second army was taken by surprise. The enemy took advantage of the favorable terrain, and it became a devastating defeat. But this was only the beginning of his hell. The prince shouted at the top of his lungs that Julius was to blame for everything. He roared, insisting that it was all because of the mage who fled before the enemy of his own accord, and because of this they lost the scouts, missing the enemy ambush. He pointed a finger at the mage and shouted that the prince was not to blame at all, it was all the mage's fault. The foolish prince blamed Julius for everything, and Julius could not understand where all his military pride had gone. He got angry at the judge because of his royal sympathies, and the judge coldly announced that he was removing Julius from the position of court wizard and ordering him to be transferred to the potion factory. The master could not help Julius with this, but thanks to him the hero was at least not sentenced to death. Instead, his elite court mage was transferred to the potion factory. 3 years have passed since then. the hero worked in a dirty, unsanitary place where rats ran across the floor. He decided to stop thinking about it and focus. Someone called from Julius's direction. There stood three men. The first asked how long the hero intended to continue like this. The second ordered him to come to them immediately. The third said that he would never finish this in a day, and the hero sighed, thinking about the annoying alchemists. Simple potion-making lesson from Julius. Raw water and ingredients obtained from demons with powerful life force living in the dungeon. All this is placed in a huge cauldron and dissolved using magic to extract the essence, and it is these preparatory works that the hero performs. Other alchemists did not stop and continued his work, brewing the restoration elixir. More than 200 masters worked around the clock in 3 shifts for a meager wage, and the men shouted at the hero, whether he heard them or not, demanding that he not ignore them and work harder. The hero laughed at the fact that this was called an important state enterprise, because to him, all this was nonsense like throwing money away. The alchemist was called a fool and asked what he was even talking about and why some ordinary mage decided to pretend to be a smart guy. The third said that Julius was not an alchemist, so he should not babble as if he understood everything. The hero said he noticed they were quite talkative, and the tall alchemist told him to hurry because he did not want to work overtime. According to the hero's mentor, industrialization spoiled Zweig's alchemists. This is what happens when people get corrupted. The hero said that if something went wrong, they would blame him. He was the only one who did it, although the work was simple and no alchemist could handle it, and he sincerely believed that it was unquestionably the prince's merit. The alchemist said that the hero had no place here and that they should be proud of their work. The hero got angry and mentally ordered them to shut up. He was already burning with rage and decided that he would not let this place destroy him. A loud question came from the side. "What are you all doing here?" It was the factory manager Henry. One of the alchemists shouted to him that Julius was up to something again. Henry asked the hero how far he had progressed. The hero replied that he had reached about 80, but then the director himself ordered to immediately give them the raw materials, to which the hero only asked again if he was serious. Henry ordered him to move, and he was forced to obey. The potion worked 20 worse, so he refused to take responsibility. The alchemists, gloating, walked away and called him a former genius. Henry asked the hero if he agreed, and the hero snapped that they would mess up someday. The man said that if Julius wanted to return, he better compromise a little. The hero asked what to do if they were reported, and Henry replied that it didn't matter, and he should just focus on mass production, to which Julius responded that it would cost the lives of adventurers and soldiers. The man said they had enough supplies to replace them. The hero grimaced and asked again. The hero clenched his fists. He finally realized what the nobles really thought of them. Henry asked Julius to be reasonable and reminded him not to forget that he owed him for hiring the traitor, and someone was eavesdropping on them. The man asked not to forget that Gon wanted to help him, but Julius did not understand what that meant. Henry insisted that the hero was good but not trying hard enough. He did not want to die like this, but if he tried, he could regain his title of court mage. The hero himself did not believe this hell would ever end. The man added that this was if the prince allowed it. As he left, he told Julius to work hard and drive out the rats. The hero considered his life cursed. When the hero picked up Abelker, it became clear to him the thief rat had settled in the factory. The thief rat is a low-level monster, omnivorous, disgusting, and loves to steal food. The hero wondered, where do they steal so much food from? Sometimes it seemed to him that they lived even better than people. Sounds came from the wardrobe, and the hero trembled with fear. The hero approached the wardrobe fearfully and exclaimed, "What a surprise." It turned out that inside was a large rat. He began to use magic and asked the rat not to be offended. He opened the wardrobe. Inside was a girl who suddenly squeaked like a mouse. The hero froze, not understanding what it was. Guanta labyrinths are dungeons owned and managed by the kingdom of Zwick. All adventurers who seek to get rich gather there, and by exploring the passages, they bring great wealth and resources to the country. Restoration elixirs are a true treasure in the Great National Labyrinth Research Project. They are extremely needed, sell like hotcakes, and replenish the country's treasury. The hero kept wondering who this girl was while she continued to imitate a mouse's squeak. The staff was raised close to his forehead. The elf cast paralysis magic on the hero. He fell to the ground, trembling, stunned that this girl was a sorceress. She said it was not funny. The girl was bored. She pulled the same trick again. The hero barely got up and, confused, asked what she was talking about, but the paralysis still held him. She, smiling, said not to even try. He wouldn't be able to move, and the cleansing side was called. The second girl approached them and asked how everything went. Clint told her sister that she considered it a great success. They had everything they needed, but the boy did not understand what that meant. The girl pressed him tightly to herself, apologized, and whispered that he just needed to endure a little. The girls said it was time to hide. The hero could not understand if it was true. Clint, pushing the cart, said that kidnapping was a great idea, and finally Yuli realized that they wanted to kidnap him. This is how the hero ended up in this place. A lot of time has passed since then. The paralysis has gone, but he could not use magic, and the thought did not give him peace. Are they going to kill him? Clint noticed that the boy had already woken up, and just then another girl entered the carriage. She said she already knew about the hero's resistance to all types of damage and asked if he had come to which Clint replied that it seemed so. The boy froze in surprise. These two girls turned out to be his killers. Seeing their ears, he realized they were elves. The taller one said it was understandable, he was a court mage and very promising, and the man replied that one can never be too careful. Freeing his mouth, the hero shouted that he did not know what they wanted, but if they did not want trouble, they would have to let him go. Immediately they covered his mouth with a hand and asked him to promise not to make noise, otherwise big trouble awaited him. The girl asked if he understood her, but at that moment, the boy was only thinking about how close she was to him. Yuli asked if they even knew who he was. After all, he was a court mage, but the girl corrected him. No, he was a former court mage, and she felt sorry for him. She said he was clinging to his former glory, and that was pathetic. The boy thought something was wrong with her. The second girl pulled Clint away from the boy, who ordered her to stop enjoying this. She wanted to object, but Roger said no buts. Enjoying someone else's suffering is bad, and Clint looked away, saying it was not so. Clint trembled, saying that she just liked to see people suffer, and that everyone did that. The hero broke out in a sweat, thinking she was a real sadist and that no one did that. Raja said that the hero was probably having a hard time because of the bracelets on his hands. The hero only then noticed the silence bracelets on himself. They block magic and are often put on servants. Only then did the boy understand why he could not use magic. They asked the hero if he had any questions, and he immediately blurted out in response, "Who are you? Is this a kidnapping? Am I really your target?" and asked them not to meddle in his past. The girls began whispering among themselves. Turning to him, they finally introduced themselves as Maple and Raja and said that they were beautiful elven spies. Clint said he was right about the kidnapping, and the man looked skeptical, wondering what strange people could have kidnapped him and whether they really called themselves beautiful. Raja noticed from his face that he did not believe them. The girl handed him proof, and the guy, stunned that they had stolen the sphere, exclaimed that the director would probably be terribly angry. This sphere is a crystallized form of high-density magic, used as an auxiliary energy source for large magical and alchemical devices, and it is very expensive. The hero guessed that because of this the factory might be closed, and Clint nearby chuckled. The girl gave a thumbs up and said they were great for stealing it from the one who tortured him. The hero agreed with her, but then added that it was not her because she also tortured him, and she sternly replied that he should never say that again. The guy remembered that they called themselves spies, and threw out that they looked more like bar dancers. The girls said they did not like Esvik's clothes, they were too heavy, and in their kingdom, this was a usual outfit. The hero said that they had stolen the ability to brew potions from the kingdom and called it all a ridiculous show. The girls did not understand why he said that, and Gon replied that it was because he was not an alchemist but an elite mage, but they remained silent. Clint said they were not wrong. Raja said they had been watching the factory for a month, trying to find out who the best alchemist was, and without a doubt, it was Julius. Clint was happy, saying that in this country potion brewing was over, and it was a complete collapse. The hero considered her rude. Julius said that was exactly why he called himself a mage. Potions could be brewed without him. Raja noted that it was no wonder he did not understand this. Probably he thought that because of the prince he would be stuck at the factory for a long time and would have no time for anything. The hero was surprised. They seemed to know everything about him. Roger said that it was true, and although he himself might not realize it, in fact, Julius was behind the whole factory. Too much magic kept the factory running. He waved it off and insisted that it had nothing to do with him, that he did not want to be near them and did not want to think about it at all. He did not care what would happen to the factory, and he asked where they were taking him. Raja said that he was being taken to the land of the desert elves, Shambhala. He had never heard of Hyrule and could not imagine ever ending up there. He didn't even know where that desert was. Maple told him about beautiful oases and couldn't wait to show him the shining oasis. The hero replied that he didn't know what an oasis was. Raja wanted him to work in the very heart of the country. She regretted that it had come to this. She approached him and whispered that they did not want to make the situation worse, so he had no choice but to trust them. The boy agreed, told them to leave him alone, and trusted them. He couldn't understand how he had gotten himself into such trouble. Clint sarcastically asked why he was sad, and the hero thought, what a strange company they were, Raja the fluffy and Clint the sadist. Raja stated that all of this was free, and the city head promised to give him his own workshop and an elven wife, saying that this was much better than working in a factory for pennies. Clint said she didn't think a former elite mage would complain. That boy told her to shut up. He shrugged it off and replied that he was actually already halfway out of that hell. Glenn mocked him, saying that he supposedly achieved this by flirting with the factory director, and they were almost going together into the forbidden world. The hero shouted, cursing her. Raja asked Glenn to forgive her because she didn't do it on purpose. Roger explained that the city head himself would tell him all the details and that it was not too late to ask something. The hero replied that it was nothing, a short break would be enough and he would return home, and Glenn said that he would no longer be able to return. Raja said that even from indirect evidence it was clear. Heth, one who sows trouble, could not come to terms with his unfavorable position, so he grabbed the most important things and ran away. The hero resigned himself and said to take him wherever they wished. Raja thanked him. Glenn pulled out a sack and sternly ordered him to climb inside. He asked confusedly what else he was needed for. She explained that the entrance to Shambhala was secret. He sent her away, saying that he was a guest. He shouted that no bags and no bullying, was going to their country as a specialist, and did not intend to end up in a sack. Maple reminded him that this was kidnapping, and Raja, who had forgotten about it, also remembered. The hero asked what was wrong with them, but still refused, and Maple again pulled out a staff and used paralysis magic. He fell and Maple wished him good night. Raja leaned over and said she had long been watching his efforts and now he could rest peacefully. The boy liked her sweet scent. In the kingdom of Zwick, only a few knew about Shambhala, though they were neighbors. No one even put it on the maps, and even he, a former court mage, did not know about the elves living in the desert. Voices asked him to wake up, asked if he was alive. The hero thought that if he did not wake up, he was done for. They whispered that then his face would be covered with kisses, and he felt that in that case he would die in the eyes of people. The girl said she would count to 3, and began the count. The hero opened his eyes. Before him appeared some gloomy, hissing creature. The hero screamed, not understanding what it was, and Maple replied that it was a desert long-tailed rat. She asked if he was really afraid that she would bite him. What a shame, and he mentally cursed the girl and asked where they were. The girl answered that they were in Shambhala, the house of the city mayor. Just then 2 people were coming toward them. Glenn turned around and told the man that Julius had woken up. He thanked Glenn and said with relief how good it was that Julius was safe. Bowing, he greeted the hero in Shambhala and introduced himself as Shamshel, the mayor of the city. He smiled and said that he hoped the hero enjoyed the journey with his beautiful daughters. The hero sarcastically replied that it was indeed a wonderful program, especially that old sack they threw over his head. The man apologized for everything that had happened. The man looked at his daughters reproachfully and said, "I warned you." Glenn said that Yuli was fine if you looked at it. He was even happy, perhaps a masochist. Yuli shouted that he was not happy. He was just glad he was freed and could finally feel his hands, and the man replied that it was good. Shamshel decided to get straight to the point. Many girls ran into the room, and the hero could not understand what it meant. The man brought to him wise and beautiful daughters from their people to satisfy his desires. The boy was surprised. The man asked which of them Julius would choose. Seeing how surprised the hero was, the man asked had he really been told nothing. The hero did not even suspect it was so serious. Ken said that she had already told him about it and that Julius was just dreaming. Shamshel explained that they want him to fully reveal his skills in their country and in return promise him a generous reward, a wonderful life, his own alchemical workshop, and a wife who would love him. He asked the hero to choose the girl he liked. Julius asked how he could talk about this with such a face. The man inquired what the hero was really against, and whether Noah's Week had servants. The hero replied that only nobles had servants, and he himself was a commoner. Shamshel did not know what to do then. She, one of the elves, simply became embarrassed and looked at Yuli. The girl blushed with embarrassment because he looked at her. The hero surprisingly realized that they really wanted to marry the man. He sighed, got out of bed, and said there was nothing to be done. The girls tensed. The hero bowed low before the mayor and apologized, saying that he was not an alchemist but a court magician. Julius admitted that it was true. Despite what his daughters said, he had never brewed potions and was afraid he would not be able to help them. The man asked to raise his head and said that he had indeed been warned about this. The man understood Julius's doubts, but his daughters had never let him down. The hero said that he seemed to believe in them very much, and he replied that he was sincerely proud of these 2. Raja said that Julius could prepare an even better potion, and Klein added that they had stolen materials for this, so everything was fine. The man asked the hero to stay. Shamshel told the truth. A new giant labyrinth was discovered under Shambhala, and the hero froze in shock. If this was really so, they would be insanely lucky to stumble upon a giant gold deposit. The hero said that on the contrary, this could even overthrow the Sweet Kingdom, which holds a monopoly on labyrinths. The man asked if Mr. Julius understood everything. The hero seriously said that if this was true, they would have to be extremely careful. Clint was embarrassed and did not understand what exactly to beware of. the hero added that 3 years ago Zwick fought with neighbors over the labyrinth's riches. He added that if they failed, the whole world would turn against them. The man replied that this was true, and that was why he had a request for the hero. Shamshul really needed the hero to prepare a potion from Shambhala. The labyrinth is not one to be easily conquered. To obtain treasures in its depths, a potion is needed, but no one benefits from sacrifices. Fortunately, the labyrinth itself contains ingredients for the potion, so the cycle of brewing potions and conquering the labyrinth will bring wealth again and again. But time does not stand still. If the military from Zweig learn that there is a labyrinth in these lands, they will not remain silent. Shambhala will find itself at the very center of the conflict. That is why the leader wants to restore order before the battle begins. If the usage cycle works, the country can be protected. The leader said he knew it was disrespect to his magic, but he asked anyway. Shamshul pleaded with the hero to become the alchemist who will save Shambhala. The hero stammered, talking about himself and alchemy. Raja, grabbing the hero's hand, begged him to help them because they needed his help. Maple grabbed his other hand, also asking for help, and he will help them because they chose him. All the elves in the room immediately began begging him to give them a chance, and the hero did not doubt that the labyrinth fever would cover this country and bring great changes. But if they were defeated, there would be trouble, and he did not understand whether they really wanted to entrust the future to a man who had never brewed a single potion. Shamshul said that in his eyes this hero is a genius with extraordinarily powerful magical abilities, smart enough to instantly assess the situation and act wisely. The hero not only calls himself a wizard, he has a good heart, and the chief heard that he is sincere in his work. The chief said that the most important thing is the words of his daughters. The hero must understand that there are things more important than instant wealth, and the hero wondered what nonsense it was that he was kidnapped by some eccentric people. The hero suddenly realized that they understood him better than he did them, and shouted that it was they who started pressuring him and have no right to complain if nothing works out, but the elves were already confident he would manage. The hero shouted that he did not care, he is not an alchemist, but he will do what they want. Pointing at himself with his finger, he shouted that he was superelite, and a joyful cry sounded around. He addressed the elder and said that he did not need a wife, but the old man refused to accept refusal at all. Shamshul said that he would take them anyway, because in any case he needed an assistant. The hero got angry because of this and spitefully said that he wanted to take those two girls, the daughters of the elder. They were shocked, not understanding what it meant. The leader asked if the hero really wanted his daughters, or if it was a problem, and if that was exactly why he did not want to take a wife. The hero was sure that this would make the one who planned it give up, but he immediately agreed, and the hero could not believe that he chose exactly them. The hero froze. Both sisters agreed, and in his thoughts he asked if they had lost their minds. Shamshul laughed and said that at such a late stage, he would no longer accept refusals. The hero had already asked for the hands of his daughters, so there was no question about it, and the hero shouted that it was absurd. It was important for the leader that Julius also showed them his determination. He asked everyone present if they heard it, and everyone immediately answered that they heard, and the hero mentally asked himself what kind of father he was. The hero shouted to the girls if they agreed to marry the man, but the girls no longer listened. Raja could not believe that he had proposed to her, and Clint told how excited she was. Raja asked if that meant they were already married, and Clint called him a child lover. He mentally screamed, "Why didn't they just say no?" Julius, giving up, told the boss that they would talk about it later, and asked what was up with the work. Sean Shill called the daughters, said that from now on they would help him, and they asked him to provide that to them. The sisters said that they would gladly work with him, and Maple again could not hold back and insulted the hero. He did not know what to do. The girls showed him their country from above and explained that it was the trading state of Shambhala. Shambhala lies in the very center of the desert. Its cities are scattered across the oasis, so it thrives thanks to free trade throughout the desert. Soon a new industry will appear, the labyrinth complex, and the hero froze at the sight. He had never seen the horizon before. The chief apologized and asked if the hero could wait until evening before going to the workshop. The hero asked in surprise, why? Shamshul felt awkward saying this, but they had just noticed that a few parts were missed during the repair. The hero did not mind taking a walk around the city. They whispered something to Raj in the ear, and she shouted that the workshop was in a terrible state, and there was no way to get there now. There was not even a roof. The hero asked if everything was really so neglected. Suddenly an elf appeared before him, bowed low, introduced himself as Slay, and said he was his secretary. He offered Julius to go and conduct an inspection of Shambhala, and Julius agreed. Smiling, the hero asked if he could take the opportunity and run away. The chief laughed and said that was a problem, after which he ordered Maple to show the hero the city. The hero asked what about her sister, but she said she would take care of the workshop. Raja asked Clan not to humiliate the hero too much, and Clan only replied that she would take care of it. The hero was already scared. Shamsil calmly said that the wedding ceremony had not even started yet, so there was nothing to worry about. Julius simply called the old man names and told him to shut up. Stepping out of the shadow, the hero immediately gasped from the heat. Looking around, he asked what kind of sun this was, and Maple replied that this was Shambhala. The girl smiled and explained that she dressed like that because of the heat, and he all in black excused himself. Supposedly, Zivik was a cold country. As they walked through the city, Clint advised not to undress. The sun was blazing at its strongest time, and it was hard to get used to such heat. Julius said enthusiastically that they lived in an amazing place and asked how people endured it here. Clint replied that desert elves tolerate heat well, and the secret was in their dark skin. She added that he would get used to it later. He asked if it was true. The girl said that it was cool in the desert at night, but the hero did not believe that there could be even a little coolness here. Maple asked him to buy clothes, and he agreed. After all, he would be burned to ashes before he became an alchemist. The girl suggested going to the main market. There was a good shop there. She asked if his son heard. He shouted that he was in pain, and she saw it herself. The girl teasingly asked how much longer he would last, and said he was about to give up. The boy cut her off to be quiet and asked when he would change clothes. Clint asked if he wanted to run away from the market, and Julius replied no, he would die immediately. The girl laughed and said that Julius was really very funny, to which the boy asked her to be quiet. They reached the main market. The hero, struck by the crowd, asked if it was always so crowded here. She said that when the caravan returns there are more people. She asked him if he liked it. He replied that it looked acceptable. He understood that this was a trading town. The girl said that when he spoke like that, she felt good. The boy said he felt like a tourist, but it turned out that Clen seemed to have been in Zwick. She said that now they were in the largest oasis of Shambhala, right in the heart of the country. Julius asked if the mayor of the city was not a king. She replied it would be cool, but no. The guy clarified if that meant they had a republic, but the girl did not know the details because children do not need to know that, and the guy was touched by his words about children. The girl asked Julia how old he was, and he replied that he was 23, and also inquired about her age. The girl answered that although it was impolite to ask, she considered herself 18, and the boy was very surprised because he thought she was about 14. The girl could not understand what nonsense it was himself had proposed to her, so Julius was really mean. The boy said it was a lie. He just asked her to go with him to the clothing store, otherwise he would die. The girl said she was a good wife and could save her husband's life. The boy said she was resorting to her old tricks again. The merchant, seeing Julius, asked with curiosity if he was a man and where he had come from. Yuli said that he was from the kingdom of Zwick. The merchant knew this land of potions and labyrinths and told the hero that he had come from afar. He threw him a fruit and said it was a gift, and from now on the hero would be his favorite customer. The hero agreed and promised to return. The hero did not understand what kind of fruit it was, but the maple gently suggested to them that it was a momo and that it should usually be eaten immediately. After tasting it, the hero thought it was sweeter and softer than an apple. The boy handed Clint a fruit and asked if she wanted it. If not, it was no problem, but Deuce said she would take it. The boy noticed a strange cat nearby, and she asked in surprise, "What is that?" When the hero called the creature a cat, he exclaimed that it was not an ordinary cat, but a cat person. The boy reached out to pet it. He said he had never seen a big cat talk, and the cat, extending its claws, asked if he wanted to fight. The boy apologized and asked not to be offended, and to make amends decided to buy her something. He asked if coins and Zwick were used here, handed her a silver coin. The cat forgave him for today, and said goodbye, that she would brag about meeting a strange man with Zwick. The boy, seeing that Maple was not eating the fruit, thought she did not like it, but she replied that this was not the case. He said that one should eat with pleasure, and if she did not like it, offered to exchange it for meat. The girl said it was not worth it, thanked him, and the boy was just confused, not understanding her strange reaction. After biting into the shashlik, he said enthusiastically that it was very tasty. Clint added that the restaurant was famous for desert boa and a sweet and spicy sauce. The desert boa is a small monster with a poisonous needle in its tail. Its meat is tasty and inexpensive. Yuli said with surprise that he had never seen cat people and asked if there were many people here. Ken explained that about 80 were elves, 20 were beast people, and humans rarely visited here. She admitted she knew little about this, and then the boy inquisitively asked if other elves also lived in the desert. The girl, Shaylee, said that here it was considered a sign of courtship when a man gives a girl the food he is going to eat. The boy shouted in surprise and apologized, saying he did not know. The girl laughed and admitted she lied. He called her a brat. Finally, they arrived at the right shop inside. As the boy had predicted, it was truly exotic. They were met by a seamstress named Amina. She greeted the boys and asked what she could offer them today. Clint said for whom they needed clothes. The elf looked at the hero and asked in surprise, "What kind of clothes are these like for a kamikaze?" Then said to take off the coat inside. Amina hurriedly began searching for something, murmuring that the man should wear a toga and cloak. The hero looked, and noticing this, Klein said that elves do not wear pants. The boy shouted, "Are you serious?" The girl smiled boldly and asked, "You don't believe me?" He irritably asked if she found it funny to laugh at foreigners, and she simply replied, "Yes." Finally finding clothes, Yuli rushed to try everything on. The seamstress said she had always dreamed of trying to change someone's outfit and thanked him for the visit. She was going to earn a lot of money, so she needed to try on many things. When the boy tried on a bunch of clothes, he asked if it was enough, but Clint and the seamstress said nothing fit. He sighed, saying all his clothes were the same, and it seemed to him he had already tried everything on. Seeing one outfit, he asked Maple to look at it, noticed it cost 20 gold, asked if it would suit him, and the girl shouted to him. Glenn asked Amina about this outfit. She said it was beautiful, and the boy just realized it really cost 20 gold coins. In different countries coins differ, but the basic currency unit everywhere is a gold coin, which equals 10 large silver coins. In that currency, one large gold coin was worth 10 ordinary gold coins, a large silver coin 10 large silver coins, an ordinary silver 10 large copper coins. There was also an honorary banknote equal to one large gold coin, and the monthly salary of a factory worker was 10 gold and 5 large silver. The mayor said these coins were almost equal in value. Clen said not to worry, the mayor would pay for everything. Julius said he would prefer something more modest, but Klein disagreed. Chloe's are given too worldly a nature. The man agreed but still thought the outfit was flashy. It even had a gold thread. The girl thought it was better than being underestimated. He agreed, but 20 gold coins is the salary for 2 months. The seamstress said that for now he could just try it on for free. When he was going to the changing room, she shouted that if he dirtied it, he would have to buy it. After changing, he asked if he looked good, and the girls did not expect him to look so good. The boy was completely comfortable in it. Amina said that even 20 gold coins was a good deal, because this fabric, carefully woven from golden threads and dyed with rare dyes, was a true masterpiece. Amina sold it for a rich merchant from some country, but he got into trouble and could not redeem it. Maple agreed that he looked good. Julius asked how many times she would repeat that. The girl replied that it was because he looked like a prince from a fairy tale. He asked if she was telling the truth, and she confirmed again that she was. Amina also said that it suited him very well, called the hero a cute prince, but he understood. She said that only so they would buy him. Clint definitely knew that Julia was tired of working at Zoik, so it was a good start, and that guy agreed with her. Being a court magician sounded good, but all his work would be dirty and thankless. Maple asked if he would take off his coat, but the boy decided not to take it off. He was starting a new life in this country, and from now on would live with dignity. And when he asked if they needed anything else, the girl replied that they needed a change of clothes and a nightshirt. The labyrinths are teeming with various monsters, and usually the further you advance through the levels, the stronger the enemies and the more valuable the treasures that drop from them. But do not underestimate the labyrinths. As is known, greed spares no one, and no treasure is worth a human life. When they moved on, the hero asked what this place was, and Clint said that they were now in the slums of Shambhala, so the boy decided to clarify if it was safe here. The girl smirked and said that it was very dangerous. He exclaimed irritably that she shouldn't take guests to such places. She replied that he shouldn't worry, the worst that could happen was a blow to the head. He, getting angry, said that it sounded as if that was indeed the case. Maple said that she often visited this place, so everything would be fine. He asked if that was true. She was confident. On a tour, you need to see such things too. Alongside wealthy places, there are slums. The boy suggested that there was a recession in their country, and the girl confirmed it. Not everyone had a job, she could say that for sure. She said that poor criminals and thieves did everything to survive. People had no way to earn money, and the gap between the rich and the poor was only widening. There was also a shortage of farmers in the desert. The boy decided that it sounded very serious. Maple said that if they managed the labyrinth, there would be more work. The girl was sure that it would help everyone, and the boy agreed with her. He asked her if there were any other labyrinths somewhere, and she said that there were several in the desert, and the nearest was half an hour's ride by camel. Some man offered to take him there because he himself wanted to see what it was like. While they were traveling, the boy thought that he had underestimated the desert. The scorching sun and dust from the heat did not let up. It was much harsher here than he had imagined. Finally, they reached the place, and the boy saw the entrance. It was the first labyrinth of Shambhala. From the side, they called Maple, and she saw Tia. Tia was a traveler, and Julius and Maple both could not help but notice how fluffy she was. The traveler asked if they would all go into the labyrinth together, but Maple replied that they would not go inside. It was just a sightseeing walk. The hero examined the blade, saying that he was just inspecting the place and nothing serious, and asked if he could take this dagger. Tia said that there would be strong enemies there, and asked if they were sure, and the girl replied that everything was fine, but Julius had already grabbed Clem and said that together they would manage. Clem screamed in surprise when he began pulling her towards the entrance. Tia waved to them, thinking that they would not manage together, and said that she would wait for them there if something went wrong. They must return immediately. Looking around the labyrinth, the hero said that it was very similar to the one in the kingdom of Zvake, and Clem grumbled that the dungeon was strange. There was not even any sun here, but at least everything was visible. She looked back, wondering if they would really go further. The boy replied that of course they would go, but only if they did not fight, because otherwise they would not pass the test, and the girl noted that her magic was poorly suited for killing, and therefore practically useless. Her only attack was an ice ball. The boy reminded her that when they met, she immediately used paralysis magic on him, and she replied that it was different. He stroked her head and said that she made him tremble with fear, so she should believe in herself, and ordered her to stand behind. He would be at the front. He proudly said that he should not be underestimated. 3 years of service in the army, so the fight would be easy, and after returning, they would tell her sister about his heroism. The girl sharply replied that if he considered himself their man, he was mistaken, but she did not have time to add anything because he had already started to leave. Suddenly a passage appeared ahead, and looking into it, the hero counted 8 goblins. Goblins are lower-rank monsters that move in packs and specialize in group attacks. The hero said he would go behind, and Clem said to take care of those in front, and this was a surprise to the girl. The hero disappeared into the portal, and later appeared again, jumping out of it from above. He, like an arrow, rushed at the sitting goblins, swinging his blade. One of the goblins sensed him and rushed to attack, but the hero dodged, hid in the portal, and began to tease him. Finding himself behind one of them, he cut off the monster's head. Maple and the goblin looked at each other in surprise. Grabbing the staff, the girl finally released an ice ball and killed the monster. The boy was stunned by the drop rate and the size of the crystals. The girl, seeing the item in his hand, asked what it was. He asked if she really didn't know, and she shouted that of course she knew. She said she just had never seen anyone fight so easily. It's very hard, and the boy stated that in Zwake everyone does it like that. The girl read that they were supposedly some kind of warriors, and that couldn't be true, but he brazenly replied that it could. Clint indignantly started hitting him, and the boy said that was his feature. At least his magic could be combat magic. He remembered how the master also got angry at him and strictly ordered not to use strategic magic carelessly because if it failed, he would be sent to the past or the future. But the hero considered it useful, although he didn't like how it absorbed him. Maple thought he was crazy. The hero said he was already better and they would speed up, and the girl was shocked that they would go even deeper because she thought it was a one-time action. Noticing a desert boa, the hero rejoiced and called the monster to him. Let it come, because he would kill it. Impaling one monster on his sword, he asked what kind of creature it was, and Maple replied that it was a scorpion. Having defeated one monster, he only later learned that it was a sand lizard. The girl asked Yuli if he was having fun, and he joyfully replied that he was very happy, showing her his tail. He said he had never seen all these monsters before, so isn't it exciting? The girl said it was not funny at all, and that he was acting like a maniac. The boy was not satisfied with that answer. She added that he just took dungeons that everyone else had tried so hard to conquer for fun. He patted her on the head and, as if apologizing, whispered that he was very sorry. She asked what kind of dungeons there were in Zwake, and he said they were teeming with rats and wolves, more precisely, thieving rats and snow wolves, and there were plenty of people there too. He said that in the upper dungeons they hunted in crowds, so there were no treasures left there, and they had to go down to the lower levels, but the deeper, the stronger the monsters, most of them killed immediately. One does not enter the dungeons lightly, and the girl did not find this funny at all. Yuli asked if there was an adventurers guild in Shambhala, and it turned out that it had not been created yet. The boy asked if this caused any problems, and the girl explained that the army and border guards themselves hunted desert monsters. She said that the workers were used to routine work and guilds were not needed here. There were few adventurers in Shambhala, and you could hardly earn anything there. The boy reassured her, "Don't worry, Dawn is waiting for us. Inside there are lots of labyrinths. How could it be unprofitable?" Huge doors towered before them, and the boy did not even know what it was. On the door he saw a sign resembling a stop. The girl shouted that they should not go further, and the boy realized with surprise that they had come this far. Clint insisted that they could not go any further, but the boy did not understand why. She explained that there was a very strong boss there. They had already suffered losses, so they had to wait until the potion was brewed. The boy with a sly smile told how much work he had, and then, as if by accident, suggested quickly checking everything. The girl shouted in surprise and asked, "Why do you need this?" She tried to stop him and asked him to wait because she really could not go there. Her sister would be angry. The boy said not to worry, Raja would not find out until they told her themselves. He could not stop rejoicing, and she begged him not to go. Quinn said that he could not disobey her and asked him to wait, but the boy stubbornly insisted he wanted to peek. Eventually, he managed to open the door. Inside was a chimera, a monster with the head of a lion and a goat, with eagle wings and a snake tail. The monster lunged at them with a growl. The boy was simply thrilled. This was exactly what he had been counting on. The girl behind was frightened and exclaimed that her sister would definitely kill her. The guy dodged the blow, shouting that this was the boss of the floor and he was, of course, huge. Clem panicked and told Julia that they couldn't handle this. The guy turned back, declared that he had already weakened him, and ordered the girl to attack. The monster struck again, but Julius dodged and ended up beside it. The tail, like a snake, is directed at the hero and he opened the portal. Jumping out from the other side, he began to pronounce the spell. When he found himself right in front of the boss's face, he threw a fireball and was shocked when he realized it had no effect. The boy screamed, called the clan, and she cast a deadly poison and paralysis spell. The monster's magical resistance, muscle strength, defense, and agility immediately began to weaken. And the boy who stood aside also rushed at him. Suddenly, a monster's face emerged from the smoke, and Julius smiled. The blow rang out, breaking the floor. The girl screamed, calling him, and he replied that everything was fine. He managed to take off before the blow and said they were almost finished. Landing on the head of the chimera lion, the hero plunged the blade in and triggered an explosive spell. The monster's head began to spark from the inside, and the glow spread throughout its entire body. The monster was defeated and its body fell. The hero, landing, finally exhaled. He was tired. The girl was surprised at how strong he was. The boy looked at the broken blade and said that the monster turned out to be quite strong, and the swords were fragile. The girl threw herself around his neck and joyfully said that he had succeeded. The girl could not believe that he had defeated the boss, praising him enthusiastically and saying how strong he was. The boy, embarrassed, replied that it was understandable. After all, he was an elite mage. The hero's whole body ached, and he said that he thought it was time to go home, and the girl agreed, but suddenly they noticed a treasure chest on the side, which drops from the boss on the second level. Looking inside, they both froze in surprise, not understanding what it was. The boy and the girl look at the luxurious palace. The girl says that it was built with city money and that the old man knows his business, and the boy admiringly admires the building. The girl explains that there was originally an old temple here, but then they planted various flowers. The hero says contentedly that he really likes it here. A squirrel sits on the girl's hand, and at home someone warmly greets the heroes. A beautiful elf woman in a black dress reproaches them for walking too long, and the boy, embarrassed, mutters that it is already night. The girl who came with him mockingly says that he is staring, and the boy firmly denies it. He tries to justify himself. The elf woman in the black dress is very embarrassed and asks if it suits her. Yuli tells her that everything looks wonderful. Everyone blushes from embarrassment. The boy adds that he needs to go to the word shop and asks to show him everything, and the elf in black immediately offers to help. They make their way deeper into the palace, look at the entrance with the pedestal, and the boy suggests that they tried to imitate a potion factory. Here the elf agrees and says that later they would like to hear his opinion. The elf girl said contentedly that she knew they had made the right choice. He said awkwardly that anyone could have done it, but he would not let them down. Another girl noticed a sparkle in his eyes. He squats down, smiles, and says that it will be hard to compare with the original, but the work is simply excellent. The elf happily asks again. Yulia says that he will get a wand and some materials to handle his business. She exclaims that she will send them as soon as she can. Another notices that now they can start storming the labyrinth. The boy replies that he already dealt with the chimera in the first one. The elf girl in black froze in surprise, and her sister, crossing her arms over her chest, confidently replied that she could say no thank you, and the boy behind reminded her that she had been nervous all along. The girl who was with Julius shows. The chimera dropped a golden topaz, a colorless horrid, and a blue-black obsidian. Another elf girl looks at them admiringly and says that such a combination seems random. Julius casually asks about the structure of the residence, and the girl in the dress became embarrassed by this question. She calls him into the room, and he in turn asks, "Why are you so nervous about this question?" Another elf girl hints to him that this question will also trouble him. He orders her to be silent. The girl shows him the rooms, the living room, and the dining room, and the boy thinks that it is quite pleasant here. He notices these things and asks why they were brought. The elf in the dress replies that all these things are theirs, and adds that they had no choice. Another says that the plush rabbit is hers. The elf in the dress shyly says that he chose them. Another smiles and says that he will get used to it before the wedding. The boy realizes that he completely forgot about this problem. He asks what is upstairs. They answer that their shared room is upstairs. The boy gets a bad feeling. He rushes up the stairs, bursts into the room, and exclaims, "What is this?" In the middle of the room stood a huge canopy bed. The room itself was very spacious. The elves stood shyly next to him. He skeptically asked why this room looked like a brothel. Julius reproachfully asks the elf girl whether she did this on the chieftain's orders or on her own, and she says she was not involved. They are already convinced that it was the old man's idea. Moreover, the girl also repeats a few words about taking the boy under control. The boy asks why she says that, and her sister notes that she smells nice. She notices that the girl in the black dress is all perfumed, and shining. It is clear she dressed up. Embarrassed, she tries to explain. She clearly remembered how the dark-haired elf said that she could influence whether Julius would fall in love with her. Other elves also rushed to help her and started giving advice. Julius realized the problem was with the secretary. Another elf noticed that the girl was cute when she was angry. The boy says the girl can go home because he does not need that. Another elf girl says that according to the law of Shambhala, spouses must sleep together. The heroes decisively disagree with her. The boy recalls their conversation with the old man, apologizes to the girls, and says he was only teasing him. Julius suggests quietly going home, saying he definitely will not run away. They, without hesitation, tell him the mayor's orders are law for them and there is no way back for them. One of the girls tries to persuade him. Another is impressed by her bold proposals, but the boy stubbornly sticks to his own. She asks him uncomfortable questions, and he persistently tries to deny everything. The elf confidently says that Julius does a lot for Shambhala and should be rewarded for this work. Another agrees with her, and the boy does not understand the logic here. They surrounded him from both sides. One claims that she personally changed his life and must answer for it. The other agrees and signals to attack him. They ended up lying on the beds. Girl was lying on top, right on Yulia. At this awkward moment, the mayor of the city enters the room and announces that a special banquet has been prepared for this boy. The heroes shouted in amazement. The old man clears his throat and asks for forgiveness. After this, he steps back and, addressing one of the elven clans, says that he leaves the rest to her. His inappropriate assumption outrages the boy and the girl, and from then on, a wild life begins in Shambhala. In the kingdom of Tsvika, a storm rages, lightning cuts the sky, and bald Heinrich sits in his office unable to believe what he has just learned. He thinks that even though the Tsar entrusted him with a potion factory, and he is one of the most influential nobles Olivsveka, he still cannot meet the quota for the next month. This thought terribly angered the man. It was precisely because of Julius Henry that he found himself in such a difficult situation. The man concluded that 2 spheres were stolen, 2 production lines stopped, and this guy also stole secret documents. Heinrich considers this a real betrayal. At that moment, he realized that he could not report this anywhere, otherwise the responsibility would fall on him as the leader. The man cannot allow this information to reach His Majesty. He got angry, hit the table with his fist, and started cursing Julius. At that moment, the butler brought him a letter to the office, and Henry pretended as if nothing had happened. The servant said that a letter had arrived from the royal palace. The letter said that production needed to be doubled. The man looked at the letter in shock and nervously said that they would not be able to increase production without losing efficiency. Henry does not understand how they can increase the order under such circumstances. The servant suggests that they need more goods because of the war with neighboring countries. In anger, the man throws a jug at him, which breaks against the wall. The butler suggests telling the truth, but the man already understands it will end badly. He orders to add another 30 to the potion and increase production. That is, as he says, to push the 4 eyes to the fullest. The servant notes that complaints have come from high-ranking alchemists, and Heinrich reproachfully says that Julius did all this himself, so they must cope as well. The butler considers this decision a complete failure, and the man yells at him not to judge the orders of his superiors. Heinrich poured himself a glass and calmed himself down, thinking that they would still buy their potions. He is sure, as long as there are labyrinths and wars, the business will live because there is simply no other mass production factory like this one. Julius meets a long-haired guy in a white jumpsuit named Marius with a cigarette in his mouth and asks him if the hero is going to war again, and the guy is very surprised to see him. Longhaired says that if he decides to stop being a mage, it is the end for him. The boy smiles and replies that he is tired of it. Marius points at him and asks who he has become. Yuli says with satisfaction that he has become an alchemist. The boy suddenly opens his eyes and realizes that it was all just a dream. The sun is just beginning to rise above the horizon. Yuli goes out onto the balcony and gazes into the distance at the sea. The boy stretches and thinks that he drank too much yesterday. He recalls with disgust how the mayor kept pouring him alcohol and cannot understand why the elders want the youth to drink a lot, and the boy also thinks about sleep. He remembers Marius, his master, and hopes that the boys are okay. At that moment, he sees one of the elven sister snakes entering the water. She does not notice him at all, and the boy blushes from what he has seen. Yuli blushed up to his ears. The heroine does not understand what she is doing here, being naked. Meanwhile, the elf goes deeper and deeper into the water. The boy crept closer and hid behind the bush. He, all red-faced, watches her from cover and excuses himself, saying he did not do it on purpose and that she herself thought to dive here. The elf girl whispered to herself that the water in Tsvik was too icy, and here only attractions. Suddenly a firm thought flashed through the boy's mind, spying like this is wrong. Maple suddenly appeared nearby and asked the boy if he loved her. He got scared and wondered how long she had been here. The elf said since he hid, and the boy nervously thought that the worst of the sisters had found him. She says she understands what Yuli feels. The girl enthusiastically praises the sister's beauty. The boy reproaches her as if she speaks like a mayor. The elf asks if that sister is the most beautiful in the world. The boy blushes and cannot find an answer, but Klen understands everything anyway. She asks with interest if her sister would be happy to hear this. Yuli, on his knees, begs her not to tell her anything. Maple thinks she will like this information. The boy says that even in that case he will be very embarrassed. She laughs at his embarrassment, and he brushes off the girl. The elf girl again asks the hero if her sister was beautiful. He, embarrassed, agrees and says she resembles a goddess. After his answer, Maple's eyes shone, and she said that this answer was absolutely correct. The elf girl says that her sister takes a bath at the same time every day. She speaks too passionately about her love for her sister, and the embarrassed boy begins to doubt her sanity. Maple suggests looking again. Yuli says he will not do that again, and she calls him boring. Yuli and two sisters were filling the pool with water from a large barrel. The boy glanced a little awkwardly at the girl who was helping him pour. She wipes the sweat from her forehead and catches his gaze. The elf asks what happened, and the boy, still recovering from the morning incident, turns away and says it's nothing. Yuli tells herself to calm down and focus on the task. Clint notices that her sister is too beautiful for that to be possible. He shrugged her off. The elf does not understand. The boy looked at the pool and thought that it was enough, then counted the ingredients of the restorative potion: water from the oasis, goblin magic stone, herbs, aloe, and date palm seeds. He asks the girls to put all the magic stones into the pool. They obediently do it. Then he pours magic into the water with his rod, and it begins to boil. Clint enchantedly feels its softness, and another elf laughs, saying she would gladly take such a bath but already washed. He suddenly remembers the morning, and shyly tells them that they are distracting him. They immediately apologize. The girls froze until the boy turned around and said that the main potion was ready. The elf girl anxiously asked what to do next, and the hero explained that a few more ingredients needed to be added, but he had never done it before. It was the work of alchemists. She asked again if everything would be all right, and he replied that he had a recipe they had stolen. But Yuli is sure if the alchemists could do it, then he can too. The boy thinks restorative potions are made from herbs and aloe, but he will add dates for flavor instead of apples, which were put in his trail. The rest of the ingredients are added to the potion. The girls say it looks appetizing and smells sweet, and Yulia suggests eating it all and mixing it with magic. Maple gently wished him luck and assured, "Don't worry, you are the most skillful in the factory." The boy begins stirring the potion and suddenly feels that the staff is much thicker than he thought, and it became harder for him to hold it. He apologizes to the girls because he might be mistaken. The girls ask if everything is all right and enthusiastically note that it smells wonderful here. The boy says that everything will be ready soon. They had a real candy pool. The elves looked at them with surprise, and the boy skeptically. They are delighted. They say it is like a fairy tale, and rejoice loudly. The boy takes one of the candies in his hand and examines it carefully because he doubts whether they should look so jelly-like, and Maple eats the candy right from the hand. Yuli reproachfully says that she cannot just eat it like that because she might get sick, but she chews and says it tastes like a smooth, tender, sweet, and sour fruit. Another girl curiously asks herself if it is really that tasty. The boy tries to prevent them from eating the candy because he cannot be 100% sure about it. The elf, not listening to him, also tries this delicacy, and he likes it. The clan praises Yuli for creating a new delicacy and calls him a genius. The boy asks if it is really that tasty. The girl offers to taste it, but he refuses, saying that everything needs to be checked first. The elves start forgiving again, and the boy thinks they have gone crazy. At that moment, a noise was heard, and the mayor ran into the room, shouting that he has an urgent trouble and asking if they have any potions. His servant carries a beaten cat on his back, and the heroes anxiously recognize Tia in it. The cat lies in a bag on its back with closed eyes, and the hero sees Tia's pitiful condition. They laid her on the sofa and, stunned, saw how serious her wounds were received in the dungeon during an attack by a 5th-level ogre. The other cats, crying, begged Julius to help her. they had heard that potions best heal wounds from monsters. The boy sadly thinks that with such a serious wound, the potion won't help. The elf rushes to him and says they must try. She calls Maple and goes to the pool with candies. Julius is asked what it is, and he replies that it is a restorative elixir that did not go as planned. Maple brings one of the candies. Another elf says it's okay. Both say they felt as if they were getting stronger, and the boy hesitates whether to give the patient such a dubious thing. The elf vehemently objects to him and shouts that he will never know until he tries. Maple first puts the candy in her own mouth. The boy does not understand why, and the mayor explains that girls from the desert have strong roots. She gives the candy to the cat, and in an instant she transforms and becomes fluffy. Tia opens her eyes and sits on the sofa healthy and stunned that everything has healed. The others are no less impressed. Everyone joyfully exclaims that this is a miracle, says it is amazing, and that the restorative effect is very strong. Holding the candy in his hands, the boy thinks that it is even too strong, even better than usual. The mayor remembered the elixir, and the boy immediately paid attention to it. The old man adds that this is a legendary elixir from ancient writings that restores life force and heals any wound. The mayor thought it was just a fairy tale, and the girls did not understand what he was talking about. The old man insists that with him they will endure the Zweig potion, and the guild must be created as soon as possible. The elves say they have a mountain of tasks, and there will be even more ahead. Just as Julius wants to say something, the mayor immediately asks to establish mass production of the elixir. The old man adds that the boy must do it at any cost, but he seriously says that he must refuse. Everyone looks at him tensely. Julius showed the candy and said it was a complete failure, and he, as mayor, must understand this. The sighs of the old man, and he agrees. The boy sits at the table reading books. Maple sits next to him, and another elf approaches them with a plate of fruit. He thinks that after that, he tried many times to brew elixirs, but each time he failed. Julius does not understand the reason. He assumed that he misunderstood the basics of alchemy and could study them in the Zweig library, but implementing it would be difficult. Maple asks why he wants to get the potion. Candy is also good, and another elf agrees with her. The boy explains that if they use the candy in Shambhala, there will be no problems, travelers will become stronger. But he adds that they are not sold because they are extremely effective and can instantly cure a very sick person. The boy asks distrustfully how much it would cost in that case. Clint, already settled on his shoulder, asks again. He notes that they simply won't earn anything. Another elf notes that it is a lot of money, over 100 large gold coins, and the boy, throwing a candy to Mabel, says that for adventurers it is too expensive and makes no sense if they cannot buy them. Glenn asks if the same can be done as with the potion. The boy notes that in that case it would turn out too cheap. He suggests selling the elixir to other countries. Julius believes that the elixir is too valuable after all. It can create an army of immortals. The boy adds that this legendary elixir can destroy the world and poses a threat not only to Shambhala, but to the whole world, and the elf agrees to accept this terrifying story. Julius decides that they need a potion a little better than the one in Sveik, and in such quantity as to ignite a war in the market. He concludes that right now, they cannot solve any of these problems, and says it would be great if the power of the elixir could be divided. The elf supports the boy, praises him for creating the legendary candy, and calls him the best, and Julius says with satisfaction that it is because he is elite. Clint asks if Julius will be able to solve this problem, and he says he is already working on it. The elf says she will have to go help the mayor of the city. Maple anxiously notes that he does not want him to collapse from exhaustion. He assures them that it is not a problem, he is just very bored. The girls believe him and are already about to leave, but suddenly one of them approaches the boy. Maple kisses the boy on the cheek and says to him, "Be a good boy." He shouts at her indignantly as she runs away. The boy realizes that they cannot do without these elixirs. He thinks again whether it is worth sharing the power of the elixir. The boy reaches out for a slice of orange on the fruit plate. The slices stick to each other like an accordion. He continues to ponder this. Two cats sincerely thank Yuli for helping their sister. The boy asks how she is. They answer that she is fine, just resting today. One of the cats adds that she is mumbling the name Julia, and smiling strangely, the hero gets a bad feeling. Yuli packs the box for the road and asks if anyone is injured, because he needs to try several elixirs. They reply that there are many in the dungeon and thank the boy. Yuli gives them a vessel with elixir, asks to take it to the wounded and then leave feedback, and at that moment someone approaches them and asks what this man is doing here. He is a huge humanoid tiger named Marmor, a true traveler. The cats explain that he is number 2 in the dungeon. Cats angrily reproach him, saying that it was Yuli who helped their sister. Marmor spread his paws and said he does not know him. Tiger mockingly says that his sister did not even endure the dungeon, and shouts that his time has come. The cat tries to convince him, but he pushes her away and says that he hates people, and only the sight of that man awakens in him the desire to kill, and Julius smiles and says that the more wounds the better. The boy teases the tiger, and it lunges at him with a roar. After some time, Julius enters the mayor's office. Two sisters and a dark-haired elf are standing with him in the office, and the mayor asks, "What happened?" He places the potion on the table in the office, and the old man looks at the vessel with incomprehension. Everyone in the office did not take their eyes off the vial, and the boy with a self-satisfied smile apologized for making them wait and declared that this is exactly the Shambhala elixir they asked for. The elf asks how he did it. Julius replies that it is the other side of the original idea, shows a candy and explains, "If it doesn't work, use what you have already made." He says that the idea sparked when she was cutting him a fruit, and he immediately thought, why not divide the candy and make something new out of it? Julius says that even potions are made by adding a thick, undiluted solution to water, so he thought the same could be done with candies, and the girls agreed that it was a brilliant idea. The boy notices that from one candy you can make 100 bottles of potion. Everyone is stunned by such an amount. The mayor takes the vial in his hands, and the hero happily says that the problem of mass production is solved. He recalls the fight with the tiger and mockingly says that thanks to the kindness of the test subjects, the potion has already been tested and proven to work properly. He and the mayor shake hands, and Julius talks about turning the world upside down, and the old man agrees. The girls look at their agreement, and Maple says that later this historic day will be called the Dawn of Shambhala, and her sister agrees. Clang comes to an abandoned district of the city with shabby houses, enters one of them, greets an old man with a bandage on one eye, and tells him that he has a job for him. He suddenly recognizes her and exclaims, "Mabel." She replies that they haven't seen each other for so long and calls him Rashid. The man confirms they haven't seen each other for a long time, and the girl thinks that not so long ago this slum was her home. She thinks about all the bad deeds she has committed. Rishi says that she hasn't changed at all, and she just waved it off. The girl boastfully told him that she already has a husband, and he was genuinely confused by this news. He tries to say that she is still a teenager, but the elf confidently says that she is already 18. Rashid cannot believe it. She sits down and asks him if she looks grown up already. The man agrees with her aloud, but there is doubt in his voice, and in his mind he thinks that this is not the case at all. She advises him to become an adventurer. The labyrinth has already been excavated, so it's time to earn money, and this is much more profitable than doing bad things. At first he hesitates, but still asks her for an answer. Does she think he can handle it? Clint says he will be taught. A thought creeps into the man's head that this is an unnecessary hassle. The girl anxiously asks if it won't happen that if they do nothing, the guys will attack them. The man bitterly replies that it is unbearable, and the elf notes that travelers are always treated with leniency. He decides to accept her offer and asks if he can talk to people like him. She replies that it would be wonderful. Clint adds that the children help when they can. She recalls how her sister gave her a future that a child from the slums does not have. She just wants to breathe some life into them. The man agrees. The elf says that this is exactly what she likes about Rashid. He indignantly states that he does not like that idea at all. Rashid also feels that the girl has changed. He remembers what she was like when she first came here after Lake Mach was drained. He hints that she has grown up because of the man. She is unsure of the answer, and the man quietly laughs at her doubt. But she confidently and enthusiastically says that she is ready to do anything for Yuli. Rashid says he has fallen in love, and the girl replies that she just wants to tease him, saying she will tease him a little, but the man is not impressed. The man takes a sip from the bottle and asks her what Yuli is doing now. She thinks that he is looking at her sister again, and not expecting such an answer, Rashid chokes on his drink. He scolds her and kicks her out, and she glows with satisfaction. Yuli stands on the balcony of his house and admits to himself that he was watching Raja again. He understands that it is wrong, but her beauty simply overwhelms him. The boy remembered his teacher and mentally told him that Shambhala is a wonderful place. Raja approaches him with a bag of groceries and calls him. He shuddered with fright. The girl asks what happened. He replies that everything is fine, but notes that something is wrong with her. She denies it. The boy notices her hand. All fingers were bandaged. He takes her hand and asks why. She says everything is fine, but he insists that she drink the potion and does not leave her side, while the elf asks him not to be so persistent. They come too close and both feel awkward. At that moment, Clint and the mayor peek into the room with flattering smiles. The heroes froze in fear. Clint says they barely made it through. The girl and the boy ask what they are doing here. Clint says he saw him flirting with her sister. The mayor replies that this is quite normal for spouses. The boy denies it himself. Raja adds that they really are a couple, and Julius asks her not to complicate the situation. He addresses the mayor. What did you want? He says they have a small problem. The boy asks again what happened. The old man asks him to come to the afternoon council meeting, and the boy is stunned by this request, while the girls do not understand why. Walking down the long corridor to the meeting, the old man quietly explains he is not a king but a mayor and only cares about order and city affairs. They enter the hall, and he adds that the council decides how the country will be governed. In the hall, two elves are watching that man attentively, one in white, herring, glasses, the other dark-haired with a mustache. From the stands, hundreds of elves are watching him intently. The sisters also sit on one of the benches. Julius looks confident, but problems with the warring factions are still spinning in his head. The mayor introduced him as a potion master and gave his full name. The boy thought the old man simply ordered him to be silent, and the elf with a mustache said he had heard about him from his people and introduced himself as General Hassam. The white-haired elf introduces himself as Bardiel, master of the Merchants' Guild. He addresses the boy contemptuously and looks at him suspiciously, and Julius is outraged by this attitude. The elf suggests getting down to business and notes that everyone here supports the mayor's labyrinth project, but there is a nuance they do not like. He points at Julius and shouts indignantly that the problem is that he is a man from Zwick, and this confuses the boy. Bardiel accuses the boy. Supposedly he is a cunning pagan who steals his country's technologies and sells them to other states in order to gain status and prestige through potion making, and emphasizes that a merchant would not trust such a person. Raja shouts that they stole the technology, and that man has nothing to do with it, and Bardiel replies that the people from Zwick are not fools and could have planned all this. The crowd suddenly sided with the elf people, shouted that they want to make their girls slaves, and complained about where the mayor is looking. Julius remains silent. White-haired says that the alchemist can easily brew potions, but in reality he knows nothing. Mabel wants to say something about the elixir, but her sister stops her. The elf turned back to them, but the sisters were silent. They kept the elixir secret to avoid unnecessary trouble, so from afar it could seem that Julius is using a stolen recipe to gain favor. Hassam joins the conversation and, turning to the elf, says that the boy betrayed his homeland to bless their land and healed many wounded. The crowd picked this up and unanimously confirmed that Julius is worthy of their trust, and the mayor added that he is indispensable for their country. Bardiel demands proof of the boy's merits, and the old man asks confusedly how to convince them. The white-haired elf with a sly smile offers a reconstruction of Lake Mach. Gradually, people begin to agree with him, and the meeting comes to an end. Later, Julius sits on the sofa in the mayor's office and sighs wearily. He is thanked for his hard work. The black-haired elf asks how he feels, and the boy replies that it is better here than in Zivik. He says he felt like a fish on a cutting board. Klen jokes about it. He waved it off, and the boy understood the look and said with satisfaction that he would be able to peek inside Shambhala. Julius thinks the conflict revolves around executive power and military merchants led by Bardiel, but the trouble is that in a country where everything depends on trade, Bardiel simply cannot be ignored. The boy is glad that at least they have a positive attitude towards potion trading. Raja stands irritated. He asks her if she is angry. The girl confidently says yes. She shouts that he is here by their will, and calling him an ignorant scoundrel was too rude. Clint and Yuli notice that she is scary when angry. The elf says she is not carefree enough to stay silent when her man is insulted. The boy is embarrassed by this phrasing. The girl is also embarrassed. The mayor and Clint smile at his embarrassment. The boy asks what Lake Mach is. The old man explains that it is a medium-sized lake east of Shambhala. He tells about the time when the water in the lake dried up overnight. Raja says they still do not know the reason. Klen notes that because of this, many people had to move to the slums, and she is among them. The mayor puts his hand on her head and adds that he then adopted them all. The boy says that a dead lake cannot be resurrected, even if he is from the elite. Maple turned to him with a pleading look. She begged him to return Lake Mac and said that in exchange, he could ask her for anything. Bardiel thinks that the lake dried up overnight, the flourishing city perished, and the elves were so frightened by the curse that now no one even approaches this place. When he finished eating, it flashed through his mind. The boy agreed to the reconstruction. The elf with a mocking smile thinks that he should have just left. This man is too stupid to understand sarcasm. He has already studied his reputation in Zwick. Bardiel knows one thing about him. He is a court mage who fled before the enemy, was then sent to a factory, and later escaped from the country. The elf took a sip of wine and does not understand how Julius can help them. He addresses the mayor as Shamshal and enthusiastically praises the wine. The old man notices that the boy has something they lack. Bardiel asks, what can a man who constantly runs away do? The elf gets up from the table and says the conversation is over, thanks the mayor for the breakfast invitation, and leaves. The old man is convinced that Julius appeared here only a few days ago. In his thoughts, he proudly lists his achievements, conquered the dungeon, mass-produced potions, and created an incredible elixir. The mayor thinks that Bartle needs to understand that this is reality. And Julius and his wives were already near the lake. That guy confidently states that he will achieve nothing and complains that something is wrong with this place. Roger says that where there are now ruins, it used to be noisy, and Clint adds that this is real hell in the desert. The guy asks what the big shots say about what happened to the lake, and the elf replies that they conducted a lot of research, but no one gave a definitive answer. Julius suggests the cause might be a change in the underground water flow. Roger notes that the lake could not have dried up overnight. The guy sums up, if the cause were known, they would have solved the problem themselves. The guy asks to tell everything he saw. Clint returns to Julius. She sincerely thanks him for restoring the lake, and he awkwardly replies that he hasn't done anything yet. The girl blurted out a rude joke, and the guy sharply pulled her ears in response and ordered her to get to work. He moves on and suddenly realizes that he himself does not know what he will ask from her. Still in the mayor's office, the guy said that he is not God. The guy finds it hard to say whether he will manage to return the lake. Clint asks if he remembers the slums, and she says that it only got worse there, and the evil with the lake is to blame for everything. The sisters say that if the lake comes back to life, they will all be able to return home and be safe, and the mayor tells him to imagine that he can bring life back to the dried-up oasis. The old man says that then his fame will instantly soar to the skies, people will call him a hero and paint his images on goods, and Clint adds that he will become a true superelite. He assures them that he cannot resurrect the lakes. Roger approaches him from behind. She hugs him from behind by the neck and begs him to try because it is very important to them. Maple tries to seduce him. He asks her indignantly, "What are you doing in front of your father?" The mayor asks if he should leave, and this makes Yuli even more upset. The boy shouts that he understands. Everyone smiles sweetly and asks him again. The boy shyly says that he will get into trouble if he does not take on this matter. He also does not want Bardiel to complicate his life any further. He decided, even if he loses, he must show his sincerity. Julius recalls that he said those words, but in a deserted place, he is dying from the heat. Maple hangs on his shoulders, and she is also very hot. Sweat flows from them like rain. Raja suggests resting until sunset. Others agree. Clen pulls the hero by the cheek and says she is very upset, and the boy asks her to stop tormenting him. He pinches her thigh, and she jumps off the boy, screaming. The elf is on all fours on the ground, and Julia says this is payback, while Raja urges them to move on. Maple stops them, says she felt something from the ground. The boy thinks it's some kind of prank and tries to stop her. The girl says she feels something thin beneath her. The boy looks at her in surprise. The boy sits next to her, presses his hand to the ground, and closes his eyes. Julia feels a subtle magic. He asks Raja how deep this magic is, and she replies that she doesn't understand such subtleties very well. Maple says his sister is great at being attractive. She denies it and says she has a sword. The boy presses both hands to the ground, asks them not to quarrel and to come closer, says he will break through with force, and Raja asks what he means. He casts an explosive spell, and the ground under his hands cracks and crumbles into huge dry chunks. Countless stone clods of earth scattered in all directions over a great distance. The ground under the heroes also crumbles, and they scream. They all fall and splash loudly into the water. The current carries them forward, and lying on their backs, they are happy that there was water and that they are alive. Finally, they stand up, and Raja indignantly asks what kind of magic this is, and the boy shyly says that the ground turned out to be more fragile than he thought, but pointing to the entrance to the dungeon where they were led, adds it is worth it. They approach the huge gates, giant stems coil around them, and the entrance is carved into the stone wall. They climb onto the threshold, wring moisture from their things, and look at the closed door. The boy says it is a wonderful work. Clint asks to praise her. She was the first to notice something strange. Raja says she no longer wants to praise her. The elf woman says she did not even suspect that there was such a cavity here. Julius suggests that it was because of it that the water dried up. The sisters nod in agreement, and the hero says that only one thing remains to be done. He smiled and said that they need to explore the dungeon. The elves froze in shock at these words. Raja tries to stop him because she thinks they are taking a big risk, and she says that he is just an alchemist. The boy grumbles that this is only part of their investigation, and he is already tired of coming here just to report, and she puts her hands on his shoulders and gently suggests waiting for the research team. The girl pleadingly asks her sister for help, but the clan already sees nothing will work. Breaking free from Raja's grip, he calls them to follow him. She asks embarrassedly what that was, and the boy explains that it was a short teleport but says not to worry, because someone is in the dungeon. A group of Sahajins appeared in the dungeon fish monsters, so intelligent that they can use various types of weapons, and a group of ants tree-like monsters that grab living creatures and feed on them. Ahead stood two archers, Sahajin and three ents. The fish monsters shot arrows at the heroes. Yuli suddenly teleports behind the Sahajins and swoops down on them from above. The monsters do not understand what is happening. With one decisive swing of two daggers, he cuts off the heads of the archer monsters. Clint grabs a staff, and the agility and defense of the enemies immediately drop. Raja rushed past her and struck one of the ents with a thorny blow, leaving a huge hole in the tree's body. Maple throws a fireball towards the enemies. Julius cut another ant. Raja shouts that he has gone mad. She asks him why the alchemist is in Vandered. He replies that it is more effective that way, and the elf notes that it is against the rules. After the battle, Roger admits that she has never seen such magic. Maple, gathering crystals from the defeated monsters, suggests that this is why her people disliked her, and the boy also thinks that he has a bad character. Roger admits that he lacked agility to succeed. Clint says that he had too much common sense. The boy is outraged that his kidnappers say such things. After complaints, the investigation did not stop. They hid behind stones and spied on other Sahajins. The boy told his sisters that he would go around from the other side and that they should attack. The girls agreed and were already rushing into the attack. When the elves charged into the attack, Julius thought that these two were among the best warriors in the whole country. Raja cuts off the head of another Sahagin with a sword. The boy thinks that his sister's combat level is very high and they can react to his actions. Julius thoughtfully thought that they were the most beautiful of all true adventurers and that it would be fun. Glenn says that he misses Sahagin and does not want to eat fried fish anytime soon. The boy first asks where he came from, and the elf replies that he came from the dungeon. He immediately notices that this dungeon was once wooden, and this monster is not of that kind. Raja suggests that Lake Mach affects the dungeon, and Arin does not rule out such a possibility. They approach another gate, and the boy excitedly exclaims that he feels the boss is probably hiding right here. The girls are categorically against them going there as a trio. Maple trembles and swears that as soon as the fight is over, she will whip him with a whip. The boy asks only lightly, and the sisters say that then he will get off too easily. They go inside and see a hermit crab in a hard shell. It's water, yet is very dangerous. Julius recognizes the monster and instantly realizes that the fight will be problematic because of its impenetrable shell and pungent stench. At that very moment, the monster attacks. They cover themselves with a large boulder from the powerful water jet. Raja says it needs to be weakened, and Maple lowers her defense again. The monster is ready to attack. Raja aimed and struck directly at the monster's claw, but the shell did not even flinch. Raja shouts that he is too tough. A boy appears next to the monster and presses his hands into the ground, shouting that if it doesn't work from above, he will try from below. The monster raises its huge claw to attack Julius. The girls anxiously call his name. The boy summons a bayonet from the ground. It grows right under the monster's belly and pierces it through. Looking at the dead monster, Julius whispered, "They won." Raja says it was too crazy, and the boy standing before her says she worries too much. Glenn rejoices that they won, and the hero agrees with her. The elf notices a treasure chest, and Raja asks what is inside. Two chests stood before them, one larger, one smaller. The boy noticed that two chests are rare, and Clint said the large one is for the greedy and they should open the smaller one. Julius says both can be opened and opens the lid, starting with the large one. Glenn is stunned by his carelessness. He is surprised by the contents. The boy takes out a ball of silk and examines it carefully. The sisters are delighted by such a find. He admits he has never heard of artifacts that could serve as a trap maze. Raja grabs the fabric in her hands and cannot believe her eyes. Does this happen, and not only precious stones? Glenn asks if this is fate. The boy says, "Take the fabric if you like it," and the girls glow with joy. Julius sighed heavily and said he would never understand women. The boy opens the smaller box and sees something round on top of the coins. He does not know what it is. Sierra says that this creature looks like a doll, and Julius notices that it is small and strange, but at the same time very cute. The creature asks where it has ended up. The heroes are shocked it can speak. They are in Shambhala. Sierra introduces herself and passes Julius off as John. He gets angry, but the robot still registers him. The robot repeatedly says their names Maple, Sierra, and John. Julius shouts angrily that he is not John, and the girls giggle. Sierra asks the robot to change the name, but it says it cannot, and touched, she makes it her minion. The creature says that it is an organizer robot, created by the creator to help him, and invites the heroes to ask any questions. Julius asks why Lake Macleo disappeared. Sierra wonders how the robot knows this, but it asks them to look in one direction. They see water bursting out of a huge crack. The robot explains that a cavity formed under the lake, blocking the underground water flow. The girls happily ask if the oasis will come back to life if all the leaking holes are closed. The robot confirms that it will. Question arises how exactly to close these holes. Some say that it will be very easy to do with ice magic. Sierra hopefully asks Julius if he can do something about it. He asks surprised why, and the girls answer, because he is arrogant, crazy, and simply because it is him. Julius is puzzled but a little flattered. Julius seriously insists that it is possible he is sure there is a way, but the girls are against it and do not want him to go. He explains that the royal library in Zweig is filled with books on this topic, so he will just go and borrow them. Maple, with tears in her eyes, shouts, "No, we have already become a family," and asks if they trust him. The young man, smirking, says that they will not listen to him anyway, but he has already decided everything for himself, and firmly adds, "Right." Sierra says if he does not return, they will come for him. They like living together. He asks her not to worry and promises to return soon. Both girls wish him luck and say with a smile that they will wait for him at home. Julius enters the portal, and it seems to him as if his heart is already in Shambhala. The action shifts to the kingdom of Zweig. A sinister man sees Julius's arrival and with a cunning smile wonders what will happen next. Julius thinks that great distances are covered on foot and estimates that it will take about half a day to reach Zweig. He quietly wonders if this world has an end, but realizes that for mages this is still unknown. The young man recalls the instructions of his master: do not stray from the path of light, do not remain in this space, and do not move together with others. Julius suddenly understood. He knew nothing about the magic of dimensions except what his master had taught him. Approaching the exit, he wonders, what is happening now in Zweig? He is greeted by an old nun, whom he smilingly calls the director. The director, sighing with relief, says that he is fine, and Julius apologizes for the trouble and hands her a bag of money. She sadly asks if he really betrayed the country, but immediately adds that the most important thing is that at least he is alive. He asked why those people from the castle came. The director replied that they only quickly searched the orphanage and left. She says that she was promised a reward for him. Julius jokingly calls her greedy, and she, offended, asks him to stop talking like that as if he were a child. Suddenly his friend Marius appears and is surprised. Julius is still in the country, since he caused him so much trouble. Marius complains that his workshop was confiscated because the nobility does not like it when common people earn money. Julius says that he feels warm feelings towards him. Marius jokes that then he should thank the officials. Marius even offers to help make a bomb. Julius notes that serious people behave badly, losing their composure. He invites Julius to live with him, promising 3 meals and a dream, learning that he lives abroad. Julius gratefully accepts the offer. He believes that Marius has long been his best friend. Marius blushed and awkwardly asked not to be touched, while Julius said that he needed to go prepare something. The young man thanks the director for the reception and says that it is already late. Marius asks him to wait. Julius notices that the castle's security is impressive, probably due to the influx of people wanting to get rich, but he is sure that it is nothing compared to his teleportation magic. He quietly enters the royal library, hoping that no one guards it. The boy sees Elvins, the chief mage of the corps, in the library. He tries to sneak unnoticed because he cannot afford to be exposed, but Elvin sneezes loudly and almost gives him away. Panic grips Julius, and he realizes he must quickly grab all the necessary books and leave immediately. He hastily gathers the books and thinks, if it weren't for the master, he could search more freely. Julius is terribly afraid of Altons. He simply does not want to deal with him. Having gathered everything needed, he thought with relief that it was time to go and left the library. He is glad to finally see his master's face, notices how much gray hair he has, and sincerely wishes him a long life. Suddenly he feels that something is wrong. Confused, he asks where he is. He hints that maybe he himself messed up the teleportation spell. Julius looks around and realizes with horror that he is in the middle of a huge empty coliseum. And it is not his fault. Someone else rewrote the coordinates. Suddenly Elvins appears and angrily says, to leave without even greeting is rude. When Julius says Elbin's name, he freezes in horror. Elbin looks at him sternly and calls him his careless student. Elvin insisted that he be called Master Elvin, not just Master, and Julius replied that he doesn't care. The master felt contempt in the student's words and directly asked why he rewrote the teleportation coordinates. He smiles maliciously and calls Julius an idiot student who ran away and now sneaks around like a little thief. The master, with a sly smile, asks if it wouldn't be wiser to at least greet. Julius takes a fighting stance. Julius asks if all this was really done just for that, and the master promises to let him go. It will all depend on his answer. Julius sarcastically says, sorry, then firmly declares, I will not return, this is my final decision. The master, boiled with anger, Julius used that forbidden dimension magic again. The young man replies that it is not for him to decide and shouts at the teacher not to be insolent. The teacher and the student stand opposite each other. Julius feels, if he relaxes even for a moment, he will perish. Elvins calls his actions vile, but Julius replies that he is no longer a mage, he is an alchemist of a completely different kind. The master, with a sly smile, says that now he understands everything. Elvin declares that as a former teacher, he must punish the careless student, and Julius realizes this is very bad. He prepares to use a special deadly technique, releasing his most powerful explosive magic with a wild scream. Julius stands against the master. The master understands that the student is only capable of cheap tricks. Shock pierces him when he realizes Julius has put a silence bracelet on him and taken away his magic. The master asks where he learned such tricks. Julius replies that he recently met someone who is skilled in this. The man asks if he wants to fight, and with a smile says that it seems he will surrender. He says the master cannot be serious with the student and removes the silence bracelet. But then he delivers a devastating teacher's blow to him, and Julius cried out in pain. He says that scolding children is the business of adults, and as a reward for victory, he hands him an old book. The man explains that when he became an alchemist, out of curiosity, he wrote a book about alchemy and asks for his forgiveness. He says that he fought for 3 years to get it back and worked tirelessly to have the charges dropped. Julius thanks him in tears, and the master recalls that he wanted to return it when they destroyed the neighboring country. The master sharply orders his clumsy apprentice to go away, and Julius suggests that the exhausted one go with him. He refuses, saying that adults are not so free, and Julius worries that without the master, Zoik will decline. Julius hands him an elixir, saying that it is not from Zweig, and asks him to accept this gift. The Lord realized with horror that if this became known, the kingdom of Zweig would suffer greatly. With a sly smile, he says that he is getting increasingly bored here and hopes that now he can drink while sitting on the royal throne. Julius recalls how in childhood he thought the master had abandoned him and fell into despair, but now he knows that was not the case. He admits that he still cannot match him, and the master says that Shambhala is a good country, and he is sorry to say goodbye. The master says goodbye to his foolish apprentice. Julius shyly asks him to drink moderately. Julius disappears into the portal, feeling that it is time to return to his new home. Meanwhile, in Shambhala, the girls report to the mayor about the discovery in the labyrinth under the lake. The mayor is stunned upon seeing the huge precious stones, and the girl confirms that it is truly amazing. The mayor smiles and says that when coincidence happens twice, it is fate, and adds that probably the labyrinth has blessed them. Sierra asks if Maple has already decided, and Maple says she wants to support him because he seems to her like a person she has known all her life. Maple directly says that Sierra is in love with Julius. Sierra herself shyly admits that she actually does not hate him that much, and Maple agrees. The girl shyly thinks that if she were alone with him, she would probably like it. Sierra awkwardly asks if he will love her in return. The servant says that together they will make Master Julius fall in love with them. The mayor anxiously thinks about how to trick him into marrying his daughters, because it is simply a necessity. The robot congratulates the girl on her upcoming wedding, and she thanks him, laughing. When Julius returns, the robot greets him as John. Julius angrily exclaims that he is not John. Julius asks where everyone else is. The robot replies that they have already left. He advises to rest a bit until dinner, and Julius agrees, asking to be woken up as soon as dinner is ready. The robot thinks now Plan B is activated. The girl sits by the bed of the sleeping Julius and says that he has traveled thousands of miles to reach them by the will of fate. She thanks him, and Julius asks why she is so sad. Julius wakes up at dawn and instantly realizes that he has overslept. He thinks that damn golem didn't even wake him up. Suddenly, he shockingly discovers that one of the girls is sleeping in his bed. The girl in the bed says good morning to Julius, and he asks in surprise what they are doing here. The girls shyly excuse themselves, saying they supposedly just mixed up the beds, and Julius calls it a pathetic excuse. Julius, furious, why are they dressed like that? The girls say they always dress like that, but the guy yells at them to stop lying. One of the girls gently nestled against him and whispered that he was cold, so she would warm him up. The second sister joins her and happily says that their plan is working. Julius panics and shouts that she is going there too. The boy, squeezed from both sides, is completely confused and does not know what to do with these two. The sisters look at him slyly, and awkwardly they are not going to retreat. Julius, finally losing patience, shouts at them, "Stop immediately." The sisters continue to tease him. One of them asks with a smile if this is the first time he has found himself in such a situation. Julius smells a strange scent and shouts in panic for them to step away from him immediately. The girls start sniffing his hair. One of them praises the sister, and the boy shouts at them to stop. One of them quietly whispers in his ear, "This is your reward for returning, enjoy it." Julius asks for at least a minute, shouting that he can't take it anymore. One of the girls giggled, saying he always ruins everything, and asked why his stomach was growling. She offers breakfast. She won't let the man go hungry. The girl asks her sister to bring her some elven water. While the girls were distracted, Julius runs out of the room, thinking it almost happened. The girls appear in the doorway and sternly promise that next time they won't let him escape. Julius flops onto the bed. The girl apologized, whispered that she was preparing a festive meal, but he was sleeping so soundly that she didn't even dare to wake him. Julius is simply delighted by how tasty it is. One sister is glad that he liked it, and the other says that her sister trained for a long time. One of the sisters says she needs to gather information from a book, and the other smiles and says she has already studied the soil of the stream called conchal. Julius reads in the book about a liquid substance that instantly hardens and can help if applied to a frozen leek. One of the sisters orders him to do it, but he categorically refuses and asks why it is even necessary. Suddenly, the little golem Nia appears and says he is ready to work. Julius panics and shouts at him to shut up, while his sister continues to tease him. Julius orders Gollum to look for coins outside. The sister is disappointed by such a terrible order, but Gollum Nia immediately agrees. Julius ponders. He has never seen a golem with such intelligence before, and he remembers that labyrinths sometimes yield rare artifacts. One of the sisters says that Nia is cute, he helped her hang the laundry, and the other thinks he looks like a little fairy. Julius thinks that such golems are very rare, while his sister scolds him for giving Nia a terrible order. One of the sisters asks Yuli what his plans are for today. He shyly replies that he would like to rest. The sisters smiled and offered him to go shopping with them, and he was very surprised by this. Yuli impatiently asks if they will tell him all the details. One of the sisters asks to wait a little and says, "You will see everything yourself." The boy says he has a bad feeling. The girl smiles and says he will be glad, and another confidently adds that he will like it. Julius thinks that the sisters are acting strangely. He understands that after the morning events, he cannot let his guard down. He says with a smile that while they are in the city, he will stop by and buy ingredients for the cocktail. Kane says he will take care of it, but Julius stubbornly replies that it is his business and he wants to do everything perfectly. Materials of Trent and the Earth Crystal. The girl reassures there will be no problems with the materials from Trends, but there may be a shortage of Earth Crystal supplies on the market. The girls discuss how to dig a new labyrinth. Yuli agrees, but says that bringing it will take too much time. While Yuli dreams about how cool it would be if labyrinths could be dug much easier, they enter the store. The shop owner, the elf Amina, joyfully welcomes the princesses and invites them to enter. She says that everything is ready, although the dress is not yet finished. Yulia was surprised by the very mention of the veil. The sisters in wedding dresses asked Julius if their appearance enchanted him, but he could not utter a single word. One of the sisters teases him, saying that he loves looking at her so much, and Julius, in panic, shouts for them to wait. Yuli froze in shock when he realized that before him were his sisters in real wedding dresses. He understands they lured him here to hint at this. The boy blushed and did not dare to look at them. The sisters smile at him, and Julius, unable to hold back, exclaims that they are so cute. Kane does not stop teasing him, urging, "Don't hold back," and Julius tries to calm her down, but in vain. Finally, he gives in. He suggests going shopping next time and immediately asks what else they need. Kane says goodbye to her, begging her to take care of matters. Julius asks where they are heading next. The girl says their next stop is a date, and Julius is completely stunned by her words. Kane smiles and asks if that was a date after all. He is dating Mabel, and Sierra shyly suggests that they leave from here. She says that she is not actually the biological daughter of the city mayor, just like Mabel and Sally. The girl explains the mayor always helps orphans and takes them under his wing. Julius asks another girl where she is from, but she does not know. The boy asks why she is called a princess. She hesitates a little and says she does not know for sure, just that old people say so. Supposedly she is from some tribe. Sierra explains that she was called that because she resembles the queen who ruled this country when it was green. The girl asks Julius to tell about himself, and he says that his parents abandoned him. He grew up in an orphanage, and then a master took him. That's how he became a wizard. She asks if he has ever dated anyone. He replies that he only dates boys and, embarrassed, chokes on his drink. The girl asks if he has someone, he says no one. Suddenly she asks Julius what he thinks about marriage. He answered, I don't know, for us it's probably a political decision. Sierra wonders, are people really like that? He explains that nobles do that, but he is just a commoner. She sadly asks if he does not love her, and Julius shyly tries to explain that it's not about that, but she insists that it's about feelings. The girl turns away and quietly says that she does not need a wedding decided by the will of parents. Sierra looks him in the eyes and directly says that she is happy next to him. Julius, completely embarrassed, cannot utter a word and looks away from her frankness. Suddenly, the golem Nia turns around and reports that he has collected a pile of coins. Julius praises him. Julius happily praises Nia and exclaims that he is a good boy. He decides that it is time for them to go home, although in his heart he thinks he cannot decide. One of the advisors burst out in indignation. He believes that Julius's explanation about the disappearance of Lake Mach is complete nonsense. He says that the cause could not be found, so everything was decided by this very man. Another advisor reproaches him for not knowing Julius's name. The elder whispered to them to remember the trader from the desert, and now allows him to speak. The old man approaches the table, grabs a bag, and shouts at the top of his voice, Julius. At the Guild of Adventures, they are met by a hill blighter named Gilliam, who greets them with a broad smile. Julius was embarrassed when Gilliam asked to call him simply Gilly and put his hand on his shoulder. The boy asks if they have earth crystals. Julie asks why he needs them, and Julia says that it is a secret. Gilly regretfully reports that, unfortunately, they have run out of earth crystals. The elder explains that the guild is still very new, and they urgently need to collect materials for potions. The man says that it is time to think about exporting the potion, and Julius agrees it's a good idea. The elder seized the chance and decisively began establishing transport routes with the trade guilds. Julius asks for other materials and explains that he has a secret weapon to uncover the labyrinth. The hero announced with a smile that he will dig up the earthen labyrinth. The sisters froze in shock at such recklessness. Cain reminds them, last time the lake held us back and the desert is too vast. Julius smiles and gently scratches the cat Mabel behind the ear, telling her that she shouldn't do that. The sisters freeze at her agility, but Julius calmly says there is no need to worry, he has a plan. He takes out a silver guiding hand. Sierra asks in surprise what it is, and Julius says that this staff can find labyrinths buried deep underground. The young man suggests splitting up. He will go look for the labyrinth, and Tia will go with him. Julius says that today is a wonderful day, while he and Tia ride a camel across the endless desert. The girl says that sandstorms in this country are rare. Julius replies that it is always sunny here. Julius, blushing, admits that he is a little nervous after their last date. Panic overwhelms him. It seems he has no idea where to look. The hero awkwardly admits that he is experiencing reactions in the lower part of his body and asks not to think about it. Tia says you will have to bathe. He asks again why she thinks he likes it, and she smiles, because you take a bath every morning. Julius panicked when he realized she was spying on him and began to justify himself. Supposedly, her hair was wet, so he thought so. The girl thanks him for the compliment, and he shouts at her in panic to forget everything because he just realized it was a bad idea. He tries not to think about it, but he cannot. Tia notices. The tip of the stick points in a certain direction. Julia says that it seems they have found a labyrinth. He asks her to step back to try to break through the entrance. The girl is worried, and he reassures her, saying everything is under control, although in his heart he fears he will not endure. He strikes the ground with incredible force. A huge explosion rises, and a deeper passage opens. They come across a labyrinth, but it does not suit them. Tia says the door is too far, so they will have to look elsewhere. The girl says she was terribly worried when he went alone to save her. He thanks her, but she calmly replies, I came back on my own, no one kidnapped me. The hero says that they are like family to him, and she simply glows with happiness. Suddenly they notice Mabel. Mabel finally finds what they were looking for. They come across the entrance to another labyrinth. Julius suggests resting while they can. He, smiling slyly, says that now they will overcome this labyrinth. His determination frightens the girls. One says her legs are already getting cold, and the other says she is scared of this side of him. Julius says that in Ziviku earthen labyrinths are common, and he wonders if it is because of the climate. Tia advises being more careful, but Julius replies that he is just used to it after all. He was a court magician. He remembers how hundreds of times he was sent to earn money under the cover of training in labyrinths. A turtle with a huge gemstone on its shell instantly captures the hero's gaze, and Julius notices her lightning-fast reaction. It turns out that it is a destroyer turtle. It is being attacked, and it explodes, as they said. Julius notices how the turtle begins to glow, and with a shout warns everyone. It has activated self-destruction and will explode in a matter of seconds. The sisters froze in horror at this unexpected monster, but Julius calmed them, saying that it is a very rare species. Julius says if there were only such monsters here, the labyrinth would not be so complicated, and that's true. He says there are many traps here, and suddenly one of the sisters steps on a tile, a pit opens beneath her. They fall into a trap into the house of monsters, from which many enemies will now emerge. Giant bats, earth golems, and rat-like creatures circle around them, and the sisters cannot understand where there are so many of them. Sierra rushes into attack, but her strikes do not affect the golems, and she shouts that they need to assess the situation. Kane creates a wall of fire, burning the golems, and happily notices how funny it looks when they burn. Mabel screamed in horror upon seeing a rat, and Tia wonders why the cat is so afraid of mice. The girl, overcoming her fear, decisively says that she will do it. Julia says that he is #1 among adventurers in Shambhala, and they will prove it to the end, inspiring everyone to fight. They break through the trap. Julius notices their excellent teamwork and asks if they are already getting used to the dungeon. The sisters shout in unison that they do not want to get used to it. Julius smiles and says that he will have to anyway. Tia asks if Mabel is okay, and Mabel replies, "I'm fine, I'll be back soon." Heroes approach the huge doors behind which, it seems, the boss's room is hidden. Julius says in surprise that he did not expect this, and Tia adds that this labyrinth should be called the jewel-adorned turtle labyrinth. Suddenly, a huge turtle with a giant glowing stone on its shell appeared before them. Thai could not believe their eyes. Look, this is the Royal Ruins turtle, a special species that rarely evolves due to the accumulation of magical ore. Julius fears that if it explodes, the labyrinth will collapse, but Tia calms him down and assures that no labyrinth has ever been destroyed by an explosion. Tia says better to die under the rubble than to fight, and Julia suggests trying to defeat the turtle. Julia says that for a man it is a natural need to defeat such a monster, and Mabel replies that as a traveler she knows better. The hero says he will handle it with magic, and suggests returning later. Tia screams in panic for him not to do that. The sisters say in unison, "Be ready for anything because unexpected things can happen at any time." He decided if the turtle explodes, he will cover them with a magical shield. Julius rushed forward, shouting that he wants too much to defeat this turtle. He notices that the turtle begins to glow and instantly realizes this is very dangerous. Tia shouted that it was dangerous here, but suddenly her legs got stuck. Sierra panics that they will all die. Julia says that although she is big, they are all the same and she is preparing to use his magic. He creates a huge ice block and hurls it directly at the turtle, completely freezing it. The hero smiles and, standing in a safe place, says to the turtle, "Explode." Mabel screams in horror, realizing that the explosion is inevitable. Mabel angrily scolds Julius for not warning them about the explosion. He apologizes, and the sisters do not understand what is happening. One of the sisters says she cannot move her legs. Julius asks Mabel for help. They are closer to the epicenter than he had planned. He offers to treat them to a delicious dinner, but Tia yells at him, "Just help them get out of here." Julius creates a powerful barrier. His barrier magic protects everyone from debris. "We are alive," Mabel exclaims joyfully. Julius calmly says he told them they will not die here. In the cave, they find many earthly crystals. Tia anxiously asks her sister if she is okay, but she still cannot feel her legs. Julius looks closely at her legs and realizes with horror, this is a poison that petrifies, and he cannot believe how this happened at all. Mabel recalls seeing a strange rat. She apologizes, thinking it is her fault, but Julius reassures her. Tia asks what about the fever reducer. Mabel says she doesn't have any, and the girl says they have an elixir. The sister says she has already tried the elixir, but it seems powerless against petrification. Yuli is in shock. The elixir does not work. He was so absorbed in the fight that he did not even notice what happened. Tia, with tears in her eyes, begs Julius to save her sister. If things go on like this, she will die in a few hours. The wounded sister says she is ready and begs Mabel not to give up, but she herself does not want to lose her. Mabel asks how she can help. Julius says there is only one way to take her to the workshop. He explains with hope that the medicine for petrification is described in the book, and if he manages to rewrite the recipe, he will be able to prepare it. Tia, with eyes full of tears, agrees. She also cannot imagine her life without her sister. Julius swears to save her sister and says that they will meet in their workshop. He held Tia tightly to himself, promising that he would not let her sister perish and would take care of her himself. The girl quietly whispers the name Yuli while he carries her on his back, asks what is happening. Julius asks her not to babble too much and says that if she dies, it will hurt him incredibly. Sierra says that the war for resources did not surprise him, and he replies, "Where there is wealth, there is war." The girl sincerely admits it is her fault. She looked into his past, but he entered the labyrinth completely unprepared. She fears that if something happens to her, Mabel will start to hate him, but he says that grief can change anyone. The girl asks him to save her sister. He promises that he will definitely save her, but only together with her, and only that way. Yuli is stunned. How could she know what he is thinking? She replies that she sees in him everything that once was called Yuri, and he was kind. He shouts that this is madness, this is a merging of consciousness, and asks if it is even legal. Yuli panics when memories of her flood into his head. In his memories appears the image of a beautiful girl, a true princess of Shambhala. Long ago there was the Mahoroba dynasty, which united all the elves of the world. One queen led this dynasty to 1,000 years of eternal peace and tranquility. But according to legend, this mighty dynasty fell in one night. After hundreds of years, she was born the last of the great ancestors, the millennial queen Zanakona. The girl smiles and says that her name is Sheila Zanakona Tennis, and she addresses her parents. She was given the same name as her ancestors, and in childhood her relatives called her princess, but her happiness was cut short. Her father lost the struggle for power, and now she does not know what to do. No one respects her as queen. One day, when she was only 4, her father entered her room just as she was looking at a portrait. The father, with a face that showed both sadness and determination, told her to listen very carefully. He said that he and her mother would have to leave this place and go very far away. The girl asks where they are going. The father replies that it is a difficult journey. They cannot take her with them. He declares from now on Shambhala will protect her, and they leave her with the city mayor. She asks how long this will last. The parents say they will come for her as soon as they find the missing queen. The mother adds that it may last 5, 10, or even 100 years. The girl runs after them in tears, begging them not to go and to take her with them, but the parents say they are very sorry. The memory stunned Yuli. He does not understand how someone can forget such an important event. He says that it is a childhood memory because he was abandoned immediately after birth. In his memory, the image of a woman in a hood seems to come alive. She leaves him at the shelter's door. He looks at the woman and quietly says, "Mom," but she walks away without looking back. Yuli says that this place awakens even forgotten memories. He turned away and said that he does not want to see this anymore. The girl says that her legs are becoming heavier and turning to stone, and the petrification is spreading rapidly. Julius promises that he will heal her soon. She thanks him but immediately loses consciousness. Yuli is in panic and does not understand what is happening. The girl says that she knew he would help Shambhala. She is glad she chose him and disappears into the portal. She asks him to save Shambhala for her sake. He hugs her. She has fainted in his arms. The heroine confesses that she loves him more than anyone in the world. He, pressing her to himself, decisively exclaims that he will not let her die.